Hello, welcome to the 120th episode of Live Drawing with me, Ian Chase Nichols. Tonight we're going to continue to work on Undersea Hero as we're working to get that done, and we'll start by showing off the page that we started last week that we finished, and it debuts one of my favorite characters in the entire universe of Undersea Hero, Radio Bear, which is it's high concept, it's a high art. Very abstract, very, very, very. It's a bear, and as you can see, he lives on a desert island, like a classic cartoon Hanna-Barbera type desert island that has a plane crash here. Slide this down a little so it's easier. Hey, Michael, good to see you. And Radio Bear lives on this desert island, and there's just a bunch of palm trees, a little cave for him to live in this plane that crashed on the island. Could be from World War II or the Korean War. I don't know. It's just an old. Hey, Brian. Good to see you. And as you get from the lettering, Undersea Hero is calling out to Radio Bear, his friend and confidant, and we get a close-up shot. You can see, here's the two pilots of the airplane that we see here. We establish that there's a plane and that there's glass here, and then you come in and you get a close-up shot framing the bear coming out of the cave that we also established here. Like, this shot is the establishing shot for what happens on Radio Bear's island. And you can see there's a broken window where Radio Bear has brought the radio out to the mouth of his cave, and there's a signal coming from it, and he has to come out, and he's, got a happy little jaunt as he goes out there. And then Radio Bear puts on his headphones, and he listens to Undersea Hero's plea, and then he offers him his very bearly advice of ar 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 ar. Undersea Hero takes his sage wisdom, dispels any notion from Liquid Lad that it's just a bear, that it's just bear noises coming through this radio. Liquid Lad couldn't possibly understand the mammoth wisdom of Radio Bear. So, and then that brings us to our page that we'll be working on here tonight. It is the conclusion of Radio Bear giving his, I don't know what you would call it, his sermon, his wondrous tellings to Undersea Hero. And then we have the correlator, and then finally, after the previous pages, we saw that the Krill Force machine was working, and he announces that they're coming, and then the next page is a splash page with the most tiny little combat garbed shrimp I'm going to say it's a world record. It's a world record page, the most combat garbed shrimp ever drawn on a page. Even just on the prelim. We've already set the record. We're going to have to break our own record when doing the full-size page, but as you can see, Radio Bear is somber yet thorough with his finger in the air of, you must listen. This is very important, Undersea Hero. So we're going to dig in. We got our brand spanking new board right here. Look at that. That's just nice. This was just a little doodle I did to try to. I didn't have a ton of drawing time today because I was running around taking pictures for the Steamship Authority. Their new vessel is in port. You can see pictures on Facebook. Let's just do when I'm starting a page, I've done so many pages like this, and I also have foregone any sort of idea that necessitates using a ruler unless it is a man-made object. That's the truth. I think that a man-made object is the only time I use a ruler anymore, and it has to be a machined object, which means that tools were used, and so that there's either a straight line or a circle that needs to be. All right. I've done this so many times that I'm okay with there being imperfections in the spacing of the panels. And we just try to make it work, and it becomes kind of a cacophony of organic maneuvers. Actually, we gotta bring that. It's a little too intruding the lower panel. This. And this will actually line up with that. And then we have a full figure, as you can see, of the correlator, just like elated. You know, it's almost like top of a trophy in triumph of just that Krill Force existing to dispel his foe, Undersea Hero. And let's start with Radio Bear. Now we all proportionality of the to the bear. I actually made the radio a little bigger, so we're gonna have to make the radio a little bit bigger. It's about the size of his head now. This was when it was about the size of the course of making a comic book sometimes. I'm actually going to have to go back in and edit some of the earlier pages before we move on to coloring and lettering. About 4 pages. Hey, Brennan, good to see you. Stuff's pretty good, you know. Working on Undersea Hero. Had a modest dinner. Nice little hamburger for dinner. Splurged a little. Keep pulling this down a little bit. There's like a little light bulb on top of the radio. I think it's on the left hand. There's a little light bulb right here, so that when we're coloring it, we can show when the radio is on. Oh, you can't see the bear. There we go. Now you can see the prelim. Very important. He's got the inquisitive finger in the air as though he's making an excellent point. And the other hand is holding the radio itself. Hey, Brendan. Oh, that's great news. Congratulations. 4 pages of pencils left. We're all going to get there. We're going to get these books done and get them to people, and hopefully they really enjoy them. So mine is late, but life stuff happens. So I'm trying to not be super hard on myself, but it's hard for me to not be hard on myself. I left the cover in. Okay. Is it going to be a story based? Just have to trust that as we go, we can fix up any little mistakes. I don't know why I just love Radio Bear so much. It's just he's a bear. He's got a radio and he makes bear noises into it. I don't know. It's just such a silly thing that I would hope that it's the kind of stuff I loved as a kid, and it doesn't. I don't ever plan on explaining like what his deal is. You know, I like that he exists as being explanation enough. I don't know. Especially when I was a kid, I don't like it as an adult when fantasy stuff is overly explained, and I didn't like it as a kid either. I know that for some people, the question of why just preoccupies their mind. Did it come back? Or can you not hear me? I rely on you folks to let me know if the audio is not working. I can do the one trick that I have that sometimes fixes it. Sometimes it gets a little weird. Radio Bear, I would hope that lends itself to all kinds of ideas. Like the one T-shirt that I had in mind was just an "I speak Radio Bear." Because there's a question as to whether Undersea Hero actually understands him, and I like the idea that not only does he understand him, but everyone that reads the book does too, even if the other people in the story don't understand it. All right, let me try my back and forth trick. Hold on. Let's see if that'll fix the audio. Give me 1 sec. Is that better? Did that fix anything, or are we still in the same boat? Not sure why it does that sometimes. I think it comes back to me just not being super technically savvy. So, excellent, good. I don't. Yeah, I mean that just basically resets the stream. So maybe that sometimes it just doesn't connect on the first go. But yeah, an I Speak Radio Bear shirt is something I'd like to do because the whole idea being that like we as the readers and can believe we know what he's saying. Radio Bear is a force for good in the world. I think that why else would he have gotten the radio from the crashed plane? Like he got the radio from the crashed plane to do good with the world. Gotta move the hand over a little bit. His arm was freakishly long. Oh no, I was just I was asking if on you said you left your cover to the end after your penciled pages. Were you planning on doing like a story-based cover? So like maybe you were working out what was going on in the book first. Like, I think that usually people try to do the cover first. I I generally don't prefer to work that way, but like I've had to. So if I don't know if you had a fun idea or if you were just saving it as something to look forward to. And I said congratulations for getting to the home stretch of your book. That's a big accomplishment. I'll pull up my chair. My back's been killing me today. That is one of those cliche things that I was not able to avoid as a comic book artist. Ugh. Having a bad back from hunching over a drawing table for hours and hours on end. I only did a handful of sketches of Radio Bear because, like, I had actually developed a comic book at one time for someone else that had a bear as the main character, and they ended up not using it and just tossed it. So I have had lots of practice drawing a specific cartoon bear. And that's kind of why I didn't need as many sketches. The idea of Radio Bear came very organically. Brennan says about the question about his cover. I asked him, says, "Nah, I just wanted to practice and get a feel for all the characters. Drawing them over and over will help me feel more confident in positioning." Absolutely. Nope, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for sharing that. I'm actually reading a book right now. It's called Artists on Art, and it's actually artists going back to like the 14th century, 15th century, talking about artists talking about art. So like, if you have a favorite historical artist, like there's an Albert Dürer section where he's talking about art. There's all kinds of basically any artist you can think of in the history of art as we know it. Even some artists who did very few interviews or spoke about process or theoretical art on any sort of public forum are in there, so it's pretty fascinating. I don't know, I've got pretty strict ideas about what constitutes art or artistic. I don't have to bore everyone to death. Brennan says he'll be sharing more once it's set. Hope to build hype and such. Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to checking it out. I did 4. That's right. 4 little thingies. I based his radio off of actually what was like an old news radio, so it's not technically like a military radio. So if someone's like, that was never in one, those bombers never had the radio like that. It looked like this thing. If we're debating if a radio is period appropriate for an airplane instead of the fact that a bear is talking through it, then we are not looking at the same book. I'm going to say sir, because it's usually a sir that makes those types of assertions towards me in the past. I have had that type of discussion. I can promise you. There was a when I released the first Undersea Hero preview, the little issue 0. I had someone tell me that Lord Krakus could not have a martini underwater, and I'm like, he's a cuttlefish that gambles, and we're talking about his martini underwater. They were adamant. They were almost angry. They were like, "You have to explain this, or you have to change it." That was the point where I just said, "Okay." Yeah, when they told me I had to change it, it's like, I'm not going to change that. I think it's funny, the idea that there's this liquid shown. I don't know if you ever watch old cartoons, and again, this is just me being old. That was another kind of thing you would see, like in space, they would be drinking out of a glass of water or something, in zero gravity. There's a wire that comes down this way. That's right. The silliness is a huge part of it, and the people that love it, and that's the other cool thing about comics is, like, I think the people that like this book so far, and obviously I've only released a handful of pages, even though we've got 56 pages coming, eminently. Um, they love the silliness. I think that that's a great thing, and it connects with people who like that stuff. So, and so far it has vastly outweighed the number, which is of that don't buy into it, which has been great. Yeah, there's a handful of shirts that we've come up with ideas on. Well, I'm considering doing one of those print-on-demand sites where you can just go on, and I don't make much money or anything off of it, if any. But people can get a Undersea Hero shirt because people have been wanting this stuff, kindly so. And I'm not going to be able to, like, fulfill or, like, just have shirts sitting around. So if I can take advantage of that type of infrastructure, I completely will. The print-on-demand thing is kind of amazing to me. Like, while the creator doesn't make very much money at all, it does make their brand available for people to help spread the word on. So that's kind of how I look at it. There's more value in it to me for someone to wear an Undersea Hero t-shirt walking around and have people go, "Oh, wow, that's neat. What is that?" than it is for, me to make $10 or something on a shirt. Well, being out, thousands of dollars from having to print a bunch of shirts. But who knows if they'll all sell or whatever. We've got two. Palm trees like that. And I think there's some more rocks. There's definitely more rocks here. These super close-ups are tricky, because like it's easy to ignore the rest of the skull or the overall what you call it, anatomy. So I'll try my best to get this to fit together. I find them hard. Anytime, you know, I can't draw the other benchmarks of an image, it's tough for me to see where it's going. I've been working a lot on the skull itself as far as anatomical drawing goes, because I wanted to show more of that through on the character instead of avoiding it. So like now I draw more of the skull itself as I'm drawing the face. Like here's where the big eye sockets would be. Here's where his big cheekbone is. Be like that. And then it comes all the way into about here. Here's where the cheekbone starts. And here's where it comes out over the teeth. And that way your teeth line up properly. See, some of these steps I was just kind of fudging for a little while. And now I feel like when I draw them, they are more accurate and more how I see it in my head. Because sometimes when I draw the outline of an eye, I'm not just drawing the eyelid. Like sometimes the eye socket actually cuts off what you can see of the eye. And here's on the top of it, where the eyebrow would be, like that. And I don't know, I've been, since we got to about page 40, I've been feeling pretty good about the artwork lately. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying that I think the model of the characters have reached where I want them to be. The middle of the face is there. So we need to bring this down like this. Bring that over like that. And then here's where the cheekbone would have been, like right here. We've gone to about there. There's about where the ear was. The skull needs to come back. That's where the neck is. This would come down to here. That's where that would be. And then get a little bit of this flowy undersea hair in there. And then what we need to do is we need to get the edge of the radio in here so that we know the radio is in here. We're really just chunking it out at this point. I know you can see some detail or whatever, but there's still a lot of decisions to be made in this space. We're blocking out this shot. I've left room for the balloons here, here, and here. There's going to be 3 here. And then I need to bring this up. Yep, I made a mistake right there. We don't even need to draw that part of the neck. What was I thinking? Need to bring the radio up. So the little antennae is in this space here. See the edge of his giant chin. And then you can have his giant thumb right here. Like that. And then we don't really, I'm going to leave it for now. We'll erase that fully at the end. But we're chunking it out. And then we'll go back in and we'll do all kinds of detail and clean up. Because I use, as you guys know, I use 2 different layers of pencil just because this gives me the overall base. And then I go back in and I do my decision making again with the HB pencil. And then here we have another cropped head, just to, you know, make it even harder on myself. Like this, go like this. And what we need is we need this eye is here, so we're gonna rough it out. We're still going to draw, because I need to know the scale, we're still going to draw like where the eye sockets are real easy, real quick. They're not perfect shapes. I mean, we're not looking to get it out. Like there's where the nose is and the skull. There's the cheekbone. Here's how the big cheekbone is on the side. There's the nose. Don't want to draw the whole nose, just show part of the nose. You can start to see it coming together. I gotta fix this nose. This nose needs some work. Brendan says he did thumbnails of all his scenes and then changed a few things as needed. Helped me keep my ideas so I didn't forget a certain shot or something. Yep, absolutely. I usually do thumbnails. I have started just as an exercise. And also I find that the first pass has so much energy. Like there's so much creative energy. You're excited. I'm not going to project, but I'll say I get excited when I get a good idea for drawing. And like when I have to get bogged down drawing it 3 times, I lose momentum. And that's one of the things that, you know, can kill some of my pages, is that I just can't keep the momentum that I started with. So I've been trying to eliminate the number of rounds of revisions and rounds of like just drawing. Because if you're penciling, inking, coloring, lettering all on your own, like that's just so many times you're looking at the same pages. Always asymmetrical, always having symmetrical stuff like this, it never works. Like if I were to draw the same 2 eye shapes on either side, instead of having him like one eye a little bit squinted, it wouldn't be as dynamic. And people would be like, oh, the anatomy's wrong or whatever. They would see something, even if I mirrored it. Inevitably, someone would see something that I didn't pull together. But if you have them asymmetrical and you have them emoting, you can not only be more dynamic, you can give yourself a little bit of leeway on some of the anatomy. And they're not going to see it because you're intentionally drawing 2 different things instead of trying to draw the same thing on 2 different sides. Yeah, it took me a long time to stop trying to do that. Like it was, and once I started experimenting with it, it made more sense. Um, you know, just having this eye here intentionally more open and this one a little more closed, as 2 things happen. Like you get that forgiveness on the you know, the readability of the anatomy, but then also as you're reading it from left to right, you're reading it and it gives it motion. So I'm seeing this eye open first and this eye squinting. It's almost like we're through the process of looking left to right, seeing a movement that doesn't exist. So you're using your reading mechanics. I'm just going to put this work phone on silent so we don't get interrupted. To enhance the interactive and user experience, the interactivity of it with the reader. So like when just reading, knowing what someone sees in order and knowing how it changes and how that changes, you know, the character or the action, can do wonders for your storytelling. and that's advanced stuff, you know. I mean, that's then you have to fit it in with your composition and like your yeah. It's just comics are hard, man. Especially good comics. You know, I've read a lot of comics probably in the last 6 months, and I've made an effort to read what's coming out now and what's, you know, in addition to like just fun old stuff. And like the one I would point to who does it just he's a master is Chris Samney, and he's doing the Batman and Robin Year One book with Mark Waid right now, and it is just a master class of comic book storytelling, visually dynamic. And what helps so much is that it is so deceptively simple looking because he doesn't use a ton of lines, but those are so, like, the pages are just so immaculately composed. You know, there's stuff on my pages that I absolutely shoot from the gut on, and sometimes I'll miss, but I tell you, I don't think that like a Chris Samney does that all too often. I think everything is like composed down to the millimeter. Still got those cheekbones to worry about. And then the depth of the cheekbone, it comes like this. See where we're at on the eye sockets. And the eye sockets do connect to the nose, the bridge of the nose right here. Bigger faces are tough. Brennan says his is way more cartoony. I literally picked a story about chili peppers in order to be able to rotate the characters without too many struggles. No, that's a very that is smart cartooning. You know, rather than just trying to render the hell out of something. You know, I mean, I think that's a wise choice. It was a smart move. Simplify. It's something I was too stupid and egotistical when I was a kid to do. I was too egotistical. Like, no, I can do this. You know, or brash. Maybe brash is the better word, but it was a failing of mine to not recognize that earlier on. You know, some of the best cartoons of all time are by a man named Harvey Kurtzman. And if you know who Harvey Kurtzman is, he's the guy who created Mad Magazine before it was a magazine, when it was a comic book. And he also did Blazing Combat for EC, all kinds of other stuff for EC, and, you know, has a hallowed career. He did The Jungle. And his characters are very simplified, very abstracted, but they're done with such precision and intent and clarity that they are just so absolutely just perfect. But yeah, Kurtzman is one. You know, the guy who cracked the code uh, in superheroes for a simplified, sleeker body. I mean, obviously, Jack Kirby is the guy who created, you know, the superhero visual language as we know it today. But I've always been a big Alex Toth fan, even though you don't see as much of it in my work anymore. Sometimes I'll intentionally do a noir feel that gets more of the Toth look. keep chunking it out. We're moving pretty well. There were always these shots in comic books where, the hero or the villain is super triumphant and just has experiencing that elation of victory. And that's what I wanted this panel to be. Kurtzman and Toth, I think, especially if you're going that direction where you're cool with using like a simplified character design, like Toth might even be too far. Like that might be too, like Kurtzman, and I'm trying to think of other artists that, obviously Scott McCloud with Zot, that would be another good one. He's the guy that did the book Understanding Comics. As much as I love, the action adventure comics, I think that had I been smarter, I would have probably just gone and done silly comics as a kid. The old newspaper strip artists like have an economy of line, but I always think that they are racked by the limitations of the weekly deliverable. It's not even the fact that it was a newspaper; it was just the fact that they had to have something weekly. Some people see it as a strength. I don't necessarily do that. It just means that there's a lot of volume, and obviously, exquisite creators did exquisite work, but there's just so much volume that I don't know. This is where I get myself into troubles when I try to do too much on these pages. Brennan says, I end up getting my black in and then layering my comics. I'm hoping the colors will help lift it up. Lift it up. You mean brighten it up? So is that what you mean? Once the colors, one way to think about coloring, and this is after taking color theory in college and all that stuff. Like, yes, you need to know how your color wheel works and all that stuff, but understanding just the fundamental thing that color for comics is another way to create separation. And what do I mean by that? I mean that an area filled with a color, whether it has a complete outline or a partial outline or no outline, is still read as its own thing. Like it still has it has its own volume, mass, and a person can see a barrier of it abutting another color or no color at all. So that gives you an extra added dynamic of you can reduce the amount of line art or black ink areas that you put into a picture, or you can increase them as you see fit. But it does give you another tool in the toolbox that I would say just takes time to plan out. Because when I do these thumbnails now, I plan the coloring here. Like I have in my mind, I know what the color is. Like this is basically all one color. This is all green and yellow with a little bit of yellow, mostly green. Same thing here. And then up here we have big bright blue, brown, and then this is cyan, and then just M2, Y2, which is like the base Caucasian printmaking skin tone that they used for 100 years, which is a 20% screen of yellow and magenta over top of one another. Um, but yeah, and then the krill force will probably be either left white or just be a one tone of yellow. Oh yeah, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Brennan says to carry it forward. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Nope, if you're thinking there. I think I said basically probably what you were already thinking. So ignore, ignore. It can be for some random internet person who stumbles along this and goes, I've never colored a comic before. When I was a kid, we didn't necessarily color our drawings very often. I did a lot of just black and white drawings. Because if I wanted to make a copy of it, my dad had a fax machine which could make a copy of a drawing, and I just thought that was the neatest thing. Like he would put my drawing into the fax machine, and it would spit out the horrible reproduced copy of it with all these weird little dots that I'd never intended. That was always a strange. That was the first time that I became aware that reproduction changed from the original. And that was something that I would then have to deal with for the rest of my adult life. And as technology changes, I had to change how I prepared my drawings for reproduction. So, hello, Ethan. Hello, Bakersfield, California. Brian saying, thinking back to 830, I'm guessing that if you have only 2 attack military krill on one comic book page, that will be a world record. You might be right. I'm giving the world more credit, I think, than I'm hoping that someone else was like, you know what? Shrimp with little pokey things and helmets would be a good idea. Little helmets on the shrimp. And if you, at this point, you're not going to remember, but like the early pages, when you see the correlator ship, you see like the place where they're making krill force, and it's far more advanced. It's like super scientific-y looking stuff. Thank you, Ethan. The comic is a day closer, and we shared a page earlier that I posted up that we finished. I'll show it again here, page 42. So, with Radio Bear. I can picture the 1980s Saturday morning cartoon toy commercial. Radio Bear radios, batteries not included. From Remco, or some other toy company that doesn't exist anymore. I think when I originally came up with this shot, I had intended for it to be heavily shadowed. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat this, because the ship is behind him. This is going to be our light source directly behind him. So we're going to make probably an almost all black figure. And we've established what he looks like, in the comic pretty thoroughly. So I'm hoping that by page 43, if we do a heavy silhouette, that people are going to be like, oh, that's the correlator. What's he doing now? He's on the precipice of victory, is what he is. He's about to have all of his dreams of krill-related warfare victory come true. Oh yeah, that's why I had modesty. That's why I had like his leg kind of forward so that the shell piece was not as obvious. Thank you, Brendan. He says he's so excited for this book. I will be, I cannot tell you, I think about it every day, I work on it every day, and like, I feel bad that it's not done yet, but I'm excited that it'll still, like, I think people will still like it. So when you people come on and tell me that stuff, it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of energy, and I'm really lucky to have that. So thank you. I think because hand lettering is such a thing that I'll be doing so much in the future that I might hand letter Krill Force in here. Krill Force are on the side of the correlator, so I would say that in this context they are, I mean, I blame the leadership. You know, they're just soldiers out there doing their job. So, but they are being weaponized by the guys on the bad side. And that's another T-shirt that was invented by one of our regulars that we'll eventually put out. Desiree came up with it's Krill or Be Krilled, the Krill Force motto, the Krill Force T-shirt, bumper sticker, whatever, what have you. The Krill Force. The Krill Force Creed. That's what it is. We're writing that down. Krill Force, and it's going to have a K instead of a C. Yeah, the Krill Force Creed. It's Krill or Be Krilled. Yes, I will be happy if people just really enjoy the goofiness of this. And I see hand lettering as like a natural evolution for me because I've done so much graphic design in my life, and I just like to do it. And I like seeing the lettering on the boards. So eventually all my comics will be like, this will be, on some of the pages I've done, you know, as exercises, I do the lettering, you know, in the balloon. I use a template to, you know, circle out things, and I don't know, I like it. That's silly minutia of old comic book making. See, we're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to move this over. We need more room for that K. Have a good night, Ethan. Thanks for popping in. I think Brian, you know, is probably pretty high on the list for most excited to get this book done. Then I gotta send it to the printer, and then they show up, and then I pay my friends in pizza to help me put them in boxes to mail them to people. It's the moving. It's like when you get your buddies to help you move. Obligatory beer and pizza will be provided. I'll get decent beer. I won't get the cheap beer. We get the second cheapest beer. That's right. That's right. Although if my buddy Jay comes down to help, we'll have to get like, some Guinness just for him. I like Guinness too, but that's like, I don't know, he's got to have a certain amount of Guinness in him to help his buddy ship stuff. Oh, I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, some of the stuff will arrive a lot quicker than the book. Like the little field guides, those won't take very long. I'm actually just getting those printed right up the street. And then the ash cans, those will probably get printed up the street too. So like stuff like that, like the mini prints, I'll just get those all done locally and hopefully have everything by the time the books show up ready to roll. That's the plan, at least. I do have to order more mailers. That's on my list of things to do. It's one of those expenses that, like when planning a Kickstarter, like yes, the shipping is expensive, but having enough for the mailers is also a thing. Gotta make his head a little bigger. All right. Well, we have it pretty well roughed out. Like you can see where the page is going to go. Let me just darken in this panel border. We'll do a little more. We'll start to refine some of the drawing. Other pencil out here. And this is just HB lead. So. Brandon says, I can't remember, but are you signing the covers? If there was an option to have them signed, I think that was one of the things that was there. Everybody will get something signed, I think. I don't hold my signature in high regard, but I'll make sure that there's, because there's also going to be a thank you note in each of them. Those are easy. I really like, I actually really enjoy doing those. Some people don't like their book signed, so I don't presume they want the book signed. I always get my book signed, on a Kickstarter, or a signed book plate, or whatever the offer is for a signed edition. Where was our light source? Hold on. I think it was just ambient light, so we've got to just give it some weight. So we'll add a little bit of a shadow down here. There's, get his little headphones going. Yeah, I can't remember either, if I'm being honest. I should just pull it up. I have the Kickstarter app and all that stuff. But then you'd just be watching me scroll through my phone. Starting to get tired. So I think we'll pencil in Radio Bear, and then we'll probably call it a night. And I'll try to get this page done, you know, post haste. This weekend I will be turning 40, so it won't be just like, I may not be spending the whole weekend at the drawing board, but I will work on it. Thank you. The sound is getting weird again. Is that what's happening? I can do my little reset thing if if the sound is still weird. Brian says he likes having his comic signed, but I have met a couple of collectors that feel signatures ruin the pristine cover. All right, let me do the fix for the last home stretch here. I'll be right back. Hold on. How's that? Is that better? Does it sound like me, or does it sound like I'm speaking through an undersea tin can? I actually think I see what happened that time. At least my virus scan decided to fire up and do its background scan. I haven't had my computer on in a few days, so, or this computer on, I should say. Excellent. It's okay, you won't have to hear me droning on and on for much longer. After this, I'm gonna have some more water. I'm gonna go sit on the couch and sit with my cat. I'm gonna go sit with my cat. His name is Bruce. We'll watch a little TV, maybe read a comic book, and then probably fall asleep on the couch. I sound like a human now. Good, good. Then it's fooling everyone. Ha ha ha. Ha. Who knew a talking bear could just be a talking bear? I think of all the cartoons as a kid that had talking bears. There was like um, was it Tailspin had a talking bear? Obviously, the Jungle Book. Yogi Bear, yeah, yeah. The Boston Bruins, my favorite hockey team, had some commercials that were pretty funny that had a guy in a far too realistic bear suit. Um, he'd be dancing, he'd be cornering the opposing team's fans and making them scared and stuff. Baloo, yes, Baloo. I don't know. Are there talking bear cartoons anymore? I have no idea. Brian says there's a bear in the new Red One movie coming out. Okay. Ah, yes, the Dwayne Johnson Santa Claus picture. I saw an ad for that. The Rock, as it were. There's an old winter movie he had in the 90s called Polar Bear King. It had a talking polar bear, live action. I've never seen that one. I'll have to see if there's a trailer on YouTube or something. Polar Bear King. And see, here's just one thing that I do with hands. Instead of just having the three knuckles line up, it's almost like he has like one hand that he is just starting to like instead of being like this, where they're kind of lined up, I just have one where it's like out like this. So it's like there's some movement to it. You could almost think that he's going like this a little bit. He's making like some sort of gesture instead of just having his hand be still. That's something I try to do with hands is again trying to make them look like they're moving a little bit because very rarely do hands just like pose. So there we go. Brother Bear, yeah, that was another one. My dad was definitely a fan of Yogi and Boo Boo. Another thing that I think about when I'm doing a drawing like this is I also add just little visual markers that I try to distinguish each texture that's different in some way. Like this rock, I just put little dots that look like, whether it's little bits of, when you look at a rock, it looks like there's different types of rock in one rock, different granular bits, or it's, the sun reflecting on that's right, picnic basket. Yep. I know Charlton made some Yogi comics. I just don't know if anybody else ever did. Maybe Gold Key did back in the 60s or 70s. Anybody that had an old radio knows that the backs of the radio had like usually some panels back there that were a little made out of a different material. And then I always add like if it's made out of metal, I'll add little rivets. It's a cartoon language, so shorthand. It's an easy way to know that that's made out of metal. So in order to add more of a break, I will probably darken in this part of his arm a little bit, just because like we have a very light area here. I should probably black out the back, but we'll leave that as it is for now. Now here's a place where I'll definitely use color to describe the break better. Um, is directly behind him. You'll see some like close-up rocks that are like right behind him, but then you'll see like the mountain where his cave comes from, and that'll create a second shade. And then here we'll have some silhouetted plants that we don't really have to add much detail because I'll do the detail with the brush when I'm inking it. And then the foreground ones will just have, some of your classic Jurassic Parky type plants. We don't have to go too crazy. So again, there's going to be speech balloons here, and it's really just to give more environment. Brian says, back in the day when there were Radio Shacks and they actually sold electronic parts, my grandfather used to build ham radios from scratch all the time. Sometimes they looked a little like what you're drawing. Cool. Yeah, the only stuff that was like built like that, I did build one of those crystal diode receivers so that you could listen to the radio. You could make them. What was it? The Smithsonian Museum used to have those little science kits. That's what they. That's what it was. My palm trees are very stylized abstractions. They look nothing like if someone said, other than is that a cartoon palm tree? It would never be used in like the Audubon Society. We'll put it that way. but I think it reads well enough that they go, "Oh, okay, that's it, sure." But that's cool. You and your dad both handy builders of things. And your kiddos too. They help you build stuff for your business. Well, it's 9:21. We're gonna draw this one little silhouette of a tree. And then we're gonna call it a night. So here's our prelim that we had. You can see some of the differences between the finished pencils here and the prelim of Radio Bear. He looked a little too menacing there, so we had to soften him up some, so he looks like he's bestowing the greatest knowledge any bear could ever bestow a man is being bestowed upon in this panel. Um, and you can see like where some little changes were. This one's actually pretty close. I would say that this panel is pretty close to the thumbnail. Um, this one I'll probably develop a little further. Some of the eyelids are too heavy on this side. And then we have the big figure with krill force here that we'll finish out in pencil. So, but Brendan, Brian, everybody, thank you for coming to hang out tonight. Here's the one finished page we had, and I hope everybody has a great evening and a great weekend. Good luck with your pages, Brandon, and we will hopefully see you next week. And good night, everybody.